Did you know that an earthquake can happen in any kind of weather? Or how each year the Southern California area has about 10,000 earthquakes. Most of them are so small that we can't really feel them. Only a fraction of them are big enough for them to cause damage for us to see or feel. See, earthquakes happen because essentially the earth is not stable. The earth's surface is covered in what we call tectonic plates, and you can think of these plates like a huge puzzle piece. Even though they make up a nice picture like the earth, they are still individual moving pieces. And sometimes when moving, they end up moving in different directions and they get stuck, they tug, they pull, and they clash. This tugging, pulling movement, though damaging, painful, and sometimes ugly, can form large mountain ranges like the beautiful and the timeless Himalayas and the Andes. People are like the earth's tectonic plates. People have different ways of doing things, and operating in a workplace setting is no exception. In a sense, just like the tectonic plates make up the Earth's surface, we make up the organization. Just the same as the tectonic plates, we move differently. We handle conflict different, we take feedback different, we trust different, and inevitably we lose trust differently. In this journey, we're going to talk about how losing trust in the workplace can make work less effective and more difficult, and how we can rebuild our way into a more stable work environment. The first thing to note is that there are different levels of conflict, some more common and less damaging, and some less common and more damaging. When employees do not trust managers and leaders, for example, various forms of organizational fallout is likely, including low engagement, high turnover rates, low reduced innovation, and so forth. It's also important to note that trust is built over time as people get to know one another through working together and relationship building. But a single triggering event, such as a restructuring or other organizational change, can reduce the level of trust employees have in leaders. And this is according to Dennis and Michelle Reyna, co-authors of Rebuilding Trust in the Workplace in 2010. The smaller conflicts tend to be a singular event. Therefore, it's considered easier because they can isolate it, they can work through it, and you can see it. But the reality is that most of the time, trust erodes as a result of small, subtle patterns of behavior that employees experience on a daily basis. For example, working with peers who fail to prepare for a meeting, or with those who gossip regularly. These are the kinds of things that happen all the time, and these small conflicts is what normally turns into the bigger and more damaging ones. These are the tugs and the pulls that create the Himalayas and the Andes. Mazur states that employees who don't trust leaders may jump ship because they're not really confident in the organization's direction, or they aren't certain of their leader's motives. A lack of trust breeds distractions and side conversations about hidden agendas, which ultimately damage productivity in the team. When researching the breaking and rebuilding of trust in the workplace, I came across an article published in 2015 by Brown, stating that it wasn't a matter of if, but when there would be issues with trust in the workplace. In fact, I'm willing to bet, based on the statistics alone, that we all have probably already worked in a workplace where people are unreliable, disengaged, disloyal, or uncommunicative. And because of this, we all know how hard it is to strive and to be successful in such an unstable, constantly moving in different direction kind of environment. So our team began looking into how we can rebuild trust after the impact and why it's important for us to try. So we began with identifying what was missing in an organization that lost trust from those within. How can we rebuild the trust after that 3.0, 4.0 tectonic plate shift? So our challenge became, how can we rebuild trust in the workplace where trust was already once established, and then somehow, some way, that trust was broken? And so we gathered our research on that, rebuilding that breach, dismantled trust, and why it was worth rebuilding. What we found was a framework for those in leadership featured in an article on building and recovering team trust. Specifically, it shows that trust is built on three, we're going to call these legs. The first leg is empathy, meaning having a conversation directed at a person instead of some macro or file cabinet type answer that we created on a system. This kind of behavior will make somebody more likely to trust you. The second leg is authenticity. meaning having that alignment between our internal sense of self and our outward behavior. When we are doing what we say we're going to be doing and acting in a way that matches our words, this kind of behavior will make someone more likely to trust you. And the third leg is logic, meaning does what we say make sense and hold true when compared to the facts and the evidence that's in front of us? This kind of behavior, you've guessed it, will make somebody more likely to trust you. And when all three legs are stable and able, then we have a sturdy foundation to repair trust on. And what makes it worthwhile to create this foundation is that trust enhances teamwork and collaboration, meaning it has a huge impact on the way that our employees work together in projects and meetings, etc. Trust improves organizational alignment because when employees trust their employers, they're more likely to work together towards the same goals. Trust improves efficiency, engagement, productivity, and even enhances decision-making. Within highly trusted workplaces, trust goes both ways, meaning the employees have trust in their superiors and managers have trust in their own team. And all of this happens when the legs of trust are stable, because a stable foundation levels and protects those within during a clash or a tug. But when they aren't and trust is broken and one or more of these legs are compromised, the work environment changes, the employee dynamic changes, and the trust begins to affect the overall mood and even effectiveness of the organization because the foundation is no longer solid. And therefore, the already unstable organization filled with unstable individual moving pieces is placed on an unstable foundation. So you can imagine my level of nervousness because what did I just tackle head on? But we still wanted to explore ways to help employees at this organization or any organization in general trust those in leadership positions to better communicate and resolve problems in a way that makes them feel valued, heard, respected, and stable. So we kept this in mind as we decided to collect our empathy work. And as a team, we took on that collection through 3 different avenues. Those avenues were interviews, card sorting, and observation. The interview process was your traditional meet and greet and ask open-ended questions rather than just collecting those yes and no answers. Then we collected through card sorting, in which we presented cards with photos on them and asked those participating to tell us what each of those represented to them. And then we had them sort those cards in whatever way they wished to see where their priorities were and what had little value to them. The third avenue was in our collection process was through observation, where we observed the work environment, reactions, decisions throughout a meeting or just a regular workday. And after getting to meet with our participants, our design team saw some key themes kept emerging throughout this collection process. Now, those things were communication, accountability, and organization and transparency. And we always hear about communication being needed, but during the collection process, we noticed that those that were recently on hired, like within 3 to 6 months, they were communicating a lot better and more effectively than the rest of the team, which is the majority. The majority was having trouble voicing their opinions if they weren't asked. And if nothing was asked, then nothing was voiced. Then we discovered accountability as a theme because we witnessed the gap between those being able and unable to count on one another and the effectiveness or the margin of error during their day-to-day activities. Transparency was another theme that emerged during the collection process, and a lack of transparency, for example, in one of the meetings that we were in during one of the observation, a question was asked about the restructuring of the organization and if they had a schedule as to when it was going to start. The manager stuttered and gave a very macro type answer. We understand the concern, but we assure you that everything is fine. Well, the team felt that file cabinet answer, and as a result, it chipped the trust of their leadership. So we thought, how might we create an atmosphere or a foundation where our seasoned employees feel that same level of trust their new hires currently display in the organization? As individuals who are consistently moving pieces and moving plates in an organization, there is a need to be moving on an organization that has that solid foundation of trust. With a solid foundation, we can move and tug and clash, but still remain standing. Will there be tugs? Yeah. Will there be damage? Maybe. But will it persevere? Absolutely. And that's what we want that's what we wanted when we sat down to create our solution, to find a way to persevere even if the tugs and the clashes get severe. So we introduced the blueprint experience. We named it this because every foundation starts with the blueprint, and every blueprint needs those building it to understand it before moving onward with the construction or the repairs. The Blueprint Experience is a seminar that consists of 3 sessions. They are available for both team members, which are our employees, and those in leadership positions. The management sessions are about 90 minutes, and the team members are about 60. Both seminars will focus on the 3 legs of trust, which is empathy, logic, and authenticity, but each series is catered for either leaders or team members. Both focus on the same topics in different respects. And the reason for this is because so often when trust is broken, we don't want to take another chance, and we become reluctant as humans to deny this change, even if it's for our overall benefit. And so the Blueprint Experience was designed to change this. The Blueprint Experience designed for our leaders focus on building a stronger foundation of trust. Each of the 3 sessions will include activities, interactive videos, and suggestions and actions that can be implemented to help rebuild that trust in their team has in their leadership. The Blueprint Experience designed for our team members focus on understanding the blueprint that is the foundation of trust in our leadership. These sessions will also guide employees through the changes that are going to be made through the leadership sessions, because they go hand in hand. Each session will also include the activities, interactive videos, research backed by science, and other credible sources, and will provide support for learning how to react to situations in an open way to encourage them to rebuild that trust in their leadership. I conducted my first 2 seminars, so all 3 sessions for both leaders and for team members, on a group of 12, 8 team members and 4 in leadership positions. We began with presenting the videos because that would ideally prepare their hearts and their minds for what was about to be presented to them. Then we introduced the activities, which to make them a little bit more comfortable for the strategies and the scenarios that were to come. And then we introduced the scenarios and we welcomed their ideas. We gave them small adjustments and feedback that can help change their responses to conflict just a little bit more gentle, more authentic, and more effective. After the seminar was completed, we provided a small anonymous survey to help us encourage the things that worked and change what didn't. Most of the questions that we asked in the survey afterwards generated the same kind of answers. A lot of overall good and we enjoyed it, but 2 questions sparked that need for change. One being, have you ever applied what you learned during a seminar or training before? Why or why not? And the other one being, if you can add something to the seminar, what would it be? Now, the first question gave us answers like, oh, I only did it because my job told me that I was required to do it. Or I never tried it because I didn't think it would work in real life. Or I just didn't want to do it. And the second question gave me the feedback to add more organization, more purpose, and more motivation to the seminar. So I got a lot of answers like, well, the activity wasn't necessary, or it made me feel a little bit anxious, I didn't want to participate, or I didn't want to do it again. Maybe it was the same person. With this, we decided to produce our second iteration seminar based on this group's feedback. The Blueprint Experience seminar's goal is to repair the trust that was once established within an organization, but has since then been broken due to a series of clashes, tugs, and pulls, consistent or sudden. We want to help leaders and team members trust one another to better communicate and resolve problems to make them feel valued, heard, respected, and stable. So we needed to find a way to make this seminar impactful, special, individualized, even as a group seminar. So first, we realized that some of the groups didn't appreciate the activities. They were nervous, or it automatically made them shut out of the rest of the session. So as a result, we added a build your own session where groups can vote beforehand, and they can choose whether or not they want a mix of scenarios, activities, quizzes, etc. That way it would be a little bit more effective in a way where it would lessen the level of anxiousness and increase the level of participation, which is what we ultimately want. The second change we did based on this feedback is we added quizzes and activities that are more purposeful and direction oriented, like the hot buttons test to find out what grinds their gears and why, and even added the Enneagram test to find out what number they are and a little bit more about who they are and how they tick. This would allow us to steer the conversation into a more beneficial and restorative session, because knowing who you are and who you are working with is game-changing when attempting to restore the trust in an organization. And my favorite change is filling the gap of team members applying what they learned because they want to versus because they have to. Now for this change, we added two things. We added an activity where 1 week before the seminar ever starts, each person writes a list of the things that makes them not trust the organization, those in leadership or even one another. These lists are private and they will not be turned in. And after each seminar, each are about a week apart, they are to write a new list, but encouraged to apply the content and the ideas that is being presented in the seminar. And the idea is that they can visually see their impact if they apply the content. Therefore, they're encouraged to continue to use these strategies even after the seminar. Visually seeing that decrease is encouraging to anybody. And if it's not changing, then maybe they can try a different approach. The other thing we added was a call to action early on. I was watching a video about the 5 dysfunctions of a team by Patrick Lencioni. In the video, he said how the beginning of anything, a meeting, a seminar, a training, a movie, the beginning is the most important. It's when the audience decides if this is going to be something that I'm interested in or not. So this made me immediately think, oh my God, I have to get them early. Patrick mentioned how it doesn't have to be an Academy Award speech, just enough to have them try. So in the beginning of each session, I serenaded them with the what ifs of the future, celebrating how the hard work that we put in now to get there. Now is the how for our future. So let's try. After consistent tugs and clashes, it's difficult to have them try, which then makes it difficult to repair what's been broken, but it's not impossible. We just need to look past the damage, try to restore what's left, and rebuild from wherever we are. The mistrust between leaders and followers is not unique to the organization that I studied. Other organizations and individuals will benefit from our initiative if the organizations learn to try and rebuild what's been broken. Now, the overall lessons of the design process, the creative process, the course, or even the program expanded just beyond just this educational professional area for me. Not only did I learn to facilitate the ideation process with my wonderful team and my amazing classmates, but my learnings bridged over to my personal life too. Most people would say that the Masters in Leadership program shaped them and molded them into the leader that they were meant to be. However, for me, I tugged and I clashed and I moved in different directions more than I would like to admit. A year ago, I was accepted into the program. I was furloughed and just discouraged. I deferred my acceptance to the fall, and honestly, I was just going to not come in because who am I to think that I am a leader? But around the same time last year, my good friend Fred passed away, and I figured this is the tug and clash and movement in my life that I could not see the beauty in. But man, Fred had a way to say yes to anything he wanted, even if it meant that he failed. So I stared at the letter that I was writing to denounce my acceptance to the program, and then I hit delete because I swear that I felt God tell me to just say yes and to do it. And so I did it. I said yes to the program, yes to the design process, yes to the feedback, yes to the troubles, yes to the creative roadblocks, yes to the failures, and most importantly, I said yes and. And so I'll end by saying yes and one more time. Yes, there will be earthquakes and conflicts in your world, organizational or personal. Yes, there will be tugs and clashes. Yes, there will be damage and even personal pain. But remember that small or big, the earthquakes in our lives can produce beauty that is timeless, like the Himalayas and the Andes. And it was worth it. Thank you.